the ProVest Banks segment. Today we'll be comparing two major airlines, which is of course Air New Zealand and Virgin Airlines, in regards to profitability, liability and capital structure. First of all, our profitability margins are going to inform us how well an entity has met its profitability objectives in relation to the resources invested. This will help us evaluate return compared with the risk associated with their investment. So let's get started with the profit margin. So a profit margin is used as an indicator of how effective a company is at its cost control. In other words, the proportion of profit left over from sales revenue after deducting all expenses. So let's begin with Virgin Group. So Virgin Group actually have a negative ratio of negative 14.1%. So this means that for every dollar of sales revenue made, the company is actually losing 14.1 cents in that dollar. In comparison to 24.7% with Air New Zealand, it would be definitely reasonable to say that profitability-wise, Air New Zealand is better at generating a profit margin. Digging into the profit margin, we look at the operating expenses, and I think it would be clear to say the reason why Virgin Group actually got that negative margin is because in 2018 their net operating expenditure is a total of $5,473 million in comparison with the Air New Zealand, which only spent $4,193 million in the 2018 year. In regards to our return on equity margin, again another negative figure from Virgin Group, so negative 49% in comparison to 64% with Air New Zealand. Air New Zealand, so equity wise, are better at using their equity to generate profit. If we gave both companies, let's say $100 each, Air New Zealand can actually use the equity that they have to so for $100 can make $64 using the capital that they have. So in other words, they're better at making more money on the money that they have. They're better with making more profit on their capital. In every aspect, it is clear that Air New Zealand, performance-wise, is better than Virgin Group. Liquidity margins are going to tell us generally how good the business is at meeting their short-term debt obligations. So diving into our current ratio, 0.8 times with Virgin Group versus Air New Zealand at 0.84 times. So this means with this ratio, the higher the ratio tells us how better the company is at meeting their short-term debt obligation. New Zealand, with the current ratio of 0.84 times, which is larger than the ratio of 0.78 times for Virgin Group, this means that for every dollar that Virgin Group owes, they have 0.84 cents of current assets to cover every dollar of their current liabilities. Today's debtors ratio is going to tell us how quickly the company is able to collect cash from their customers. 13.97 days for Virgin Group versus 6.62 days for Air New Zealand. So this is actually quite a big difference between the two companies. So Air New Zealand is taking an average 6.62, so let's say 7 days to collect their cash from their customers in relation to 13.97 days. So Virgin Group's actually taking 14 days, and half the amount of time as Virgin Group is to collect the cash from their customers. So this is quite a big difference. So I guess it would be reasonable to say Air New Zealand is actually more liquid than what Virgin Group is. Right across the board, our liquidity rise, we see again Air New Zealand topping the charts, very, very liquid solvency ratios, which is going to tell us how good the company is at meeting their long-term debt obligations. Virgin Group has a 257.3% debt to asset ratio in comparison to Air New Zealand with a 72.3% debt to asset ratio. It's on Air New Zealand with the lower ratio of 72.3%, which means that 72.3% of their assets are funded through borrowing money. The Virgin Group is actually quite a risky investment with 257.3%, also reflected in the debt to equity ratio. So with Virgin Group of 465.2%, in New Zealand at 260.6%. This ratio actually measures the level of debt financing compared to the owner's funds. So in this instance, that would suggest, this ratio would suggest that Virgin Group has greater reliance on their debt relative to the equity. In all aspects, Air New Zealand would propose a much less riskier investment in comparison to Virgin Group. Thank you for tuning in to the ProVest segment. We hope you have found this information very useful. My name is Hayley Dilger, and now we're going to head back to the Channel 5 studio.